I said, the whole afternoon, like.
Good picture.
You can hear me? Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. And for those of you in cyberspace and for those folks who made it here tonight, if you don't know me, my name is David Mango and I'm Superintendent of Schools here. Welcome to our third and final curriculum focus group meeting. As I previously shared in board meetings and in public, this would be the final meeting of the year and it'd be an opportunity to introduce our new Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment to our community with a roadmap and compliments to our education committee and our interview committee. We went through an arduous process, vetted quite a bit of qualified candidates, and we came down to one, and that is Mrs. Laura Thomas. And so at this time, I'm going to turn the podium graciously over to our new Chief Second, Director of Curriculum, Mrs. Thomas. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mango.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know we have staff here, some parents as well, board members, so thank you. I'm glad to get to present to you tonight so that you can hear my background, my vision for being in this role. And you'll see as I go through my presentation, you'll see I'm a visual person. So I put in a lot of pictures because when I interview teachers in my building, I'm currently a principal. So when I interview teachers, I love when they can give me a visual of what it's like in their classroom. So I'm going to give you a lot of examples of what I do in my current role so that you can see how I'm going to translate that into this role. So just to begin with my experience, what prepared me for this role was my 22 years in education. So after graduating from St. Joe's in 2001, I began my career right away where I grew up in Union, New Jersey. So I was very fortunate to get my first teaching job there. I was a special ed teacher. After that, while I was in Union, I obtained my master's degree right at Kane University, which is right in Union. After Union, I went to Jefferson Township where I was the transition coordinator for the next 5 years. Transition coordinator, part of that role was linking our 18 to 21 special ed students with real life work experiences. So I was able to come in and build a program. There was not an existing program in that school. So I was able to come in, make great connections through businesses, local agencies, in order to connect those students with work experiences. After that, that's what led me to Hackettstown, where Mr. Mango hired me, and that began my experience in school administration. I was the assistant principal in Hackettstown High School for 3 years, and now where I currently am the principal at Willow Grove Elementary School. In all 3 school districts, I was awarded tenure. So, and I pointed that out in my interviews to the committees, because I really do, wherever I work, I become fully invested in that community, in that district, and I really have built such great connections and such great experiences that I've only ever left in order to accelerate and advance my career. I've never made a lateral move, so there was always a greater opportunity that I sought out. Collaboration. So obviously in this role as director, it involves collaboration with multiple departments, with multiple people, because it's a job that's multifaceted. So although the title is Director of Curriculum Instruction, I fully know it's not just that. It involves so much more. So it involves my collaboration with parents, with students, with supervisors, with administration, working directly with Mr. Mango. So in each experience that I had throughout my experience in the education world, I've had to work very closely with all stakeholders in building collaboration. So it's really one of the things that I really take so much pride in, is working with the staff and building those partnerships and connections. I told you I like pictures, so I'll explain this. In building collaboration, which I think is so huge, I began my tenure at Willow Grove at a time where the staff there had gone through a lot of changes. They had gone through a reorganization within the district. COVID arrived. They had a lot of administrative changes, and then I came. So a big part of what I was going to address with staff was, we're all in this together, and that I very much operate on a team mentality. So I showed them, this is one of our first PD sessions. My staff came in, first day of summer, we had our PD, and I showed them these pictures. And I said, I'm in the boat with you. We're all working as a team. This is my philosophy. This is my leadership style. This is my approach. And some days it's going to feel like that picture on the left. There's going to be really difficult days. There's going to be days that are not smooth and seamless, but we're all going to help each other out. I'm here to help you out. If your fellow colleague needs help, we're going to support that fellow colleague, so that we could feel like the next picture, where we could feel the benefits of our hard work, where we can just enjoy the day. So that was well received. Showed them a few other pictures in our presentation just on my philosophy. Moving towards that, and in conjunction with that, it's cultivating a positive environment. So I felt that when I became a school administrator in Hackettstown, starting at the high school and then going to the elementary school, in both instances, I felt that a really big piece was building that positive culture and climate. So it was through the collaboration, but it was also through listening to the staff, listening to the students, listening to the parents. So it just to showcase that I brought this up in my interviews, and I showed them the pictures, that to cultivate a positive environment, you have to get infused with the students, with the staff. You have to have conversations and know what's going on, so you know how to amend those things. So I always talk about positive culture and climate in my school building. So it does involve me dressing up as a math wizard when kids earn their math wizard prize during the day, when they reach their math facts, when they know their math facts on a timed test and they receive a prize, and I dress up as a wizard and I surprise them in their classroom. It involves dressing up as our mascot, the tiger, to give them an award, because that's a behavioral incentive that we have in our school. So the tiger surprises them and gives them an award. And it's just building that overall positivity in the building. And now down the middle, if you see, these are things that I listed that when I began in the high school, there was a lot of feedback that staff, as you know, in high school, it could tend to feel very isolating sometimes as a high school teacher. My staff at the high school did feel just that. They felt it was very departmentalized. So if you were a science teacher, you were in the science wing, connecting mainly with your fellow science colleagues during the day with not a lot of interaction with other people in the building. And this wasn't just based on my observation. So everything I do was based on data that I received. So what I did when I arrived at the high school, I created a survey. I sent out the survey to staff on the culture and climate to assess how they felt. The biggest feedback that I was getting was that they felt isolated. They felt that there were little opportunities to connect with other staff members. So leading into the next PD, I created a day of team building activities. And I made the groupings purposely so that there were people from different departments, different grade levels, working together. So this was a day of fun. We had a great time. But really what came out of it was they were working together as a team to play fun games. We had cornhole, Jenga, Connect Four. We had music playing in the gym. We also took those team building to classroom-based activities. So we did get to know you games, 2 truths and a lie, things like that. So they got to learn things about their fellow colleagues that they had never learned before. And the purpose of that was not just to let off steam and have fun. The purpose was I was answering what they had told me on a recent survey, that they felt like there was little interaction with other people in the building. And what came out of this was great cross-curricular opportunities. So what came from this was a world history teacher was able to connect with an art teacher in the classroom. They were on the same team. They made a connection. Long story short, before you know it, she's supporting his class and he's supporting her class because he was discussing the Renaissance and she came and brought in artwork from that time period, and they had great discussions with the students and they built projects. So that's a success right there. So you create these opportunities for staff based on the feedback that I was receiving. So that's just a little bit just to show you, because I feel like in getting to know me, I'm new to this district, you don't know anything about me. So that's why, again, I like to just showcase through direct examples of my leadership style and initiatives that I've brought to the schools. So the background and basically the building blocks of this position encompasses all of these things. So as I mentioned before, it's not just about curriculum instruction, although that drives all of our programs, right? But I will be assisting Mr. Mango in project developments. I have experience with that in my current district. When I arrived, we had just enhanced all security within the district. We renovated the auditorium, which was a major undertaking, but gave us a space in which then we were able to utilize in a better way to enhance our theater programs, clubs. It gave us a great space in order to do that. In my school, we renovated recently our media center, which I have pictures in there. I'll get to that in a minute. We renovated the media center. We needed extra classroom spaces at my school, so we added on what we will not call them trailers, we call them our learning cottages. So that was 4 extra classrooms that were built on, and just going through that renovation process, building these things, designing them, working in conjunction with the project managers, construction, and being part of that day-to-day really gave me experience that now I know Mr. Mango's vision for this district, and that's where I can support him moving forward. And if you've hopefully been to the board meetings or have watched them, he's very clear in his vision, the renovations, facilities-wise, and what his intentions are. And he's not just telling you what he's planning for next year, he's telling you what he's planning for the year after that and the year after that. So he always thinks long-term, which is another reason why I'm here. So yes, we worked together. He hired me in Hackettstown, but that's another reason why I'm here. I know Mr. Mango's vision. He leads with open communication, as do I. And I know what sort of projects he wants to bring here and what programs we would like to bring here. And our philosophies very much fall in line. So that first piece would be very seamless for us. In this role as director, it obviously will guide me into continuing research, so that we are current with best practices, the best resources out there for our students. I will provide meaningful PD for staff, so that's going to be a huge piece of my role. So in my current district, and I don't know what the PD looks like here, but I'm sure we'll have many conversations about that. What we were finding in our district was you have these great PD days scheduled into your calendar, and what we slowly came to find was they were little by little becoming just work days. They were becoming filled with giving teachers time to work on some of their professional responsibilities, which is very important. And we need to give them time to do that. But what I'm more interested in is giving teachers tools, creating a day or creating the 2 hours that we have to give them something meaningful. So I have experience in running a couple ed camps within my district. If you're not familiar with ed camps, we'll discuss that. That's something where teachers can come for a day. Typically it's a full day. It doesn't have to be though, but you're essentially getting a group of teachers together and there's really no set agenda, which is the great thing about ed camp. There's no set agenda. You get together as a group, either multiple schools, multiple school districts, and teachers can reflect upon what topic they want to discuss that day. And essentially there's just a blank board with times already mapped out, the classroom spaces already mapped out, and then teachers will just start filling in the board with topics that they would like to discuss. Some people, in coming into an ed camp, the way we've run it in the past, knowing that they were coming into an ed camp, would come prepared with materials. They knew, I love using Nearpod in my classroom. I want to teach others how to use Nearpod in their classroom. So they came with a presentation or materials, and they were able to do that in their session. Or some teachers just wanted to talk about, how can I write a PLAF? That's when you have a student in special ed and they're going for their IEP is coming up. The teacher is responsible for sharing their present levels of the educational performance. How do I write a good PLAF? That was the session, and that's a great topic. So teachers, out of those days when we ran ed camps, I heard teachers leaving and they were excited because now they were leaving the session with something that they could put into action tomorrow. So that's what I mean by delivering valuable PD. I think we need to, across the board, just address that and really go back to that. I will research funding for programs, research any new grant opportunities to make sure that it's accessible for us in Kinnelon. And obviously I will coordinate testing, use the assessment data to drive instruction. And that's not just, to me, that's not just our state testing. That involves any other testing we're doing. I think there needs to be a constant reflection, discussion on the data that we're receiving from any forms of assessments, any diagnostic testings we use, benchmarks, and really get into deep discussions about what are we doing with this data and how does that drive future programs. And of course, I'll be with state testing, I'll be presenting those results to the public at board meetings. So some of my future goals, and it'll go into the next slide, next couple slides as well. But it's really to align the curriculum and resources with our enhanced programs. And what does that mean? Well, it ties into the second thing. Our facilities, what I mentioned, and Mr. Mango's vision. So the enhancement of our facilities, every space we have, has to work in conjunction with our curriculum, with our individual teaching practices in our classroom. It has to fall in line with standards, with new instructional technology coming in. These all will be expanding together. It's not one driving the other. It's decisions made in unison. So for example, I'll jump ahead, I'll go back. So told you the tiger is gonna come back around. I like my picture. So the tiger was having fun in the library, but this is just to showcase you, this was a recent, and obviously this was not fully completed. The books are not on the shelves. So I mentioned the media center renovation. This was just about when it was completed. And this is what I mean by enhancing the facility and then bringing in the right instructional technology and curriculum to match with the space. So why did we need to redo the media center? Well, it was old and it needed remodeling, but it wasn't functional. So now in this day and age, and think about it, think about major corporations out there, think about your own classrooms that your children are in or that you work in. They're collaborative spaces. So we created a space, all of those tables on the left, we have flexible seating because kids enjoy the flexible seating now. So we provided many different seating options, and that works really well with our student population. Those tables are collaborative tables because they can easily be pulled apart, and you could create groups of 2, groups of 3, group of 5 like it is there. You could separate it into individual roles if you need that space for testing. And then we, of course, put in our interactive whiteboards. There is a rolling whiteboard you could see in the back. It's on the right of the projector. So that's just a big whiteboard, but on the side, you can't really see it, but on the side, there's little cubby holes, and that housed all individual whiteboards so that you can easily go into this space and use it as a great classroom space, great collaborative space, or anything that you want. This was the other side of that, of the shelving system. And again, I wanted to show you there the flexible seating. So we got rockers. We also got little cushions, individual cushions that you could just spread out all over the floor because kids love sitting on the floor. And that was just a great space for kids to go and read, or a teacher to bring in their class to do a reading session with their students. The picture on the right, that's part of the media center, but that's essentially a separate room within the media center. So you can't tell too well, but the right side, that wall, it's all frosted glass. And that would be so when there's a class in there that they're not disrupted by the students out in the library. So that's our STEAM lab all along the wall. That's where all of the equipment is, the 3D printers, and that's what we use as our maker space. And we purposely got those high stools, the tables with the butcher blocks, so that again, it's a collaborative space for students to create, to design, to investigate. So we're very happy with this space, but this is what I mean by when you're enhancing your building and your facilities, how is it going to make sense for your teaching practices? How is it going to bring in all of the technology that's available out there? And how are we going to make it accessible for students? So I'll jump back to that. Part of my future goals as well, I was fortunate enough to go to the elementary principal forum this week, and a really great question was asked. We are moving to the full day kindergarten, and a parent asked, well, what does that look like? What does the full day schedule look like? And we got into a great discussion about it, and it was really eye-opening because we really need to think about how are we enhancing our lower elementary ed, right? And I think we need to start with building those foundational skills. So it could mean using a specific program. There's lots of programs out there, but what are we going to do with that length of time? Now you have kindergartners going from a half day to a full day. What does their day look like? And how is it going? How are we going to increase their academics while also increasing their social time, right? Recreation time, so they have time for peer relationships. This goes down into pre-K too. A full day inclusive pre-K. Now look what we can do with a program if that comes to fruition in the future. Now in an inclusive pre-K, now we have time where students in pre-K can receive therapeutic services that they weren't receiving necessarily. Now they could get it during the school day. Speech, OT, PT, behavioral supports, working on communication, working on peer relationships, working on letter and sound recognition, learning how to write their name. Moving forward to kindergarten, building foundational skills, especially in ELA. Maybe that means more time for a program like Foundations to build phonics and phonemic awareness. Or a program like Hegarty. I'm just saying names. These are programs I have experience with. But if you build that, now you have a full day kindergarten, you're building those foundational skills. Well, think about how that's going to translate into first grade, second grade, and think about our achievement. So I think that's where this is all connected. It's all interrelated. Our programs, our facilities, and our curriculum. They all have to work in conjunction with each other. I will support articulation. So, and this is not just at the building level, but this is between the buildings as well. I think that's extremely important. It's articulation with me, with our supervisors, with our administrators, and ensuring that we're constantly assessing the instruction and the curriculum and the attention to the standards. I think it's very important to have those articulation meetings throughout the grade levels, because I found in my position that sometimes that doesn't always occur so easily, right? We have to find those PD days to do it, to get the staff together. We're all on different schedules, so it's difficult to do, but it's very important. Because if you look at something like, not that we rely solely on NJSLA scores, okay? We don't rely on just one test, but that is published, parents get the report, you see it on the school performance report. If you look at the scores, you might look and think, well, how can we increase the number of students meeting or exceeding standards in science? That's part of these articulation discussions. Because if you look at the science standards, they're banded by grade bands. I can look into the curriculum on the state website, and I can look at standards for third grade and know exactly what my third grade student is learning in ELA in that year, because there's a list of standards. But in science, what's my third grader learning in science? Well, I'm not sure. If the teacher doesn't communicate that all the time, I'm not really sure, because the band is K-5. So this is where the articulation meetings are so important with the teachers, so that fourth grade can meet with fifth grade. This is what we cover in fourth grade. We don't go into too much detail on these topics, but we hit this, and this is where you can pick up in fifth grade. That's why those meetings are so important, so that we can narrow down the focus and then deliver better instruction. I will continue to support staff in their knowledge of best teaching practices, because the staff, they are savvy and they know best. They're the ones teaching the material. They know the content. They're our content experts. They also, and I know that it's this way here, because I know in my building, my teachers constantly do research. They love seeing new things out there. They're reading blogs, they're online, they're researching programs, they're researching texts to bring in, resources, instructional technology. They're so knowledgeable about current practices and current resources that you have to have those discussions with your teachers. And we need to have those discussions about using within your curriculum, being okay with utilizing multiple resources. We don't need to just rely on one book. We don't need one resource to teach a subject matter. We do need multiple resources to teach a subject matter. And we should be doing that. That's best practice, as long as we're teaching the standards. We will continue to work towards the utilization of various resources and also ensure that it's cost effective. So what do I mean by that? A big piece of this is not just the text that you're bringing in, but also instructional technology. And we really have to take a look, and this is going to be a big part of my job with the supervisors and administrators. What do we have? What is useful? What are we not using too much? And what is cost effective? So for example, are we paying for, or do we have acquired in district multiple resources or applications that all are very similar and all kind of do the same thing? Well, we really need to take a look at that and kind of weed some things out, or maybe choose one that would encompass more aspects of a program, instead of maybe paying for multiple things that all do the same thing. And I only mention that because in my current district where I am, this is what we found. We found that teachers, like I said, are very savvy and they love learning about new programs out there. And I was finding, when I came in as principal, I was finding that some of my teachers would acquire a program through their own classroom budget. They would use a resource or an app that they loved and their students loved, but then it wasn't being used in other classes or other grade levels. And then when we took a deeper look into it and we found, well, this app would be very relevant for this grade level also, or maybe for the district. And then we found that it was more cost effective to get district subscriptions. And then it gave each student access to that wonderful app, because we need to be equitable. So these are the things that I've already started these discussions, going to continue these discussions so that we can really hone in on the resources. And I stress that because it is so important. So in enhancing our programs, obviously continuing to develop the curriculum. That's my title. So obviously it is a big piece to this role. So it's constantly revising the curriculum. The curriculum should not be something that we write and then it's just gets put away. And then when we have to approve it again at the next board meeting in a couple of years, then we open it again and okay, we have to update it. No, in my eyes, it should be a living document. We should constantly be looking at the curriculum together. And that's what I run now in my school. We have team meetings. So I schedule their classes in a way so that grade level team members have time to meet every week. And I meet with them and I have these discussions with them. What are we using? How are we meeting the standards? What technology are we bringing in? What projects are we doing within this curriculum? What content do we want the students to know? What skills do we want the students to know? What are our essential questions? We get into these deep discussions because it has to constantly be revised, especially now in current times. I mentioned the applications and the resources. Next week, there's going to be a whole new set of apps out there. It's constantly changing. And we want to remain current because we want what's best for our children in the classroom. We want the most current technology and beneficial applications. So we have to constantly revise the curriculum. Streamline the textbook and instructional technology process. That I already am beginning to do some of those things. I will be meeting with the Ed Committee. So we will be looking at our resources when we're bringing in something new and what that process should look like. Because again, we have to ensure that we're giving equal access to all students. And we have to ensure the resources are appropriate. We have to ensure that they're connecting to the standards. We have to ensure that we're still maintaining that academically rigorous curriculum. We have to ensure that it is meeting individual needs for other learners, for every type of learner. So these processes, we're not just going to quickly adopt a new resource and use it in the classroom. There has to be a process, which will then be board approved, which will then be placed on a public agenda, any new resource that we're bringing in. So that way there is no question and parents will be knowledgeable about those things. And that leads into really just engaging with, again, the staff, but also the parents. The curriculum focus meetings are great. And it gives you insight as to what's happening in the classroom. But one of my goals moving forward for curriculum focus meetings is to pinpoint a specific topic, because I think that's much more valuable. And then you could hit a targeted audience. So for example, if we research some new instructional technology that we want to bring in, well, a parent might not know how to use that application at home. So we can demo the application for the parents in a session like this. And I think that would be very appropriate. And we can, like I said, target those meetings so that way the audience coming in is there just for that. Rather than the unknown of, well, what's happening in this curriculum focus meeting tonight? It's a wide array. Let's target it so that way parents come out with something useful. I also think that posting you saw my pictures, and I brought in Facebook when I started at the high school. Facebook was not being widely used. I brought that in because I also wanted to not just show the great things that were happening in the school. I wanted to show that, but I wanted parents to have a view as to what was going on during the school day. I wanted parents to be able to see the great things that are going on in the classroom. And that's a great way to showcase that. The curriculum focus meetings, as I said, if we target the topic, parents will walk away with an actual piece of information that they could go home and help their child with. We've done a good job of that so far, especially this year with the health and PE standards, with the new standards that came out. We addressed that, and through your meetings in the past, you addressed that, you gave sample lessons and activities, and that's what we will continue to do, is to get ahead of it and to get the message out so that parents are well informed of what's coming up. So I will continue with those meetings and getting the message out to parents. The next piece, another big part of this role, is accommodating students through RTI. So I'm not going to just throw terms out there that you may not understand, especially if you're a parent not in the education world, but RTI is just basically a tiered system approach to help students. That's basically what it is. We have a system in place, and we're going to continue enhancing that system, because what it comes down to is if a student is struggling in the classroom with anything, doesn't have to just be academic, it could target behavior as well. If they're struggling with something, could be focusing, anything, we put them on a tiered system and we communicate with the parents every step of the way. And what does that do? Well, in the end, maybe it could decrease the number of students being referred to child study team. Maybe not every student needs an IEP. There are many students who do, absolutely. But many students can be accommodated within their classroom without ever needing an IEP or a 504. And that's part of the RTI system. So essentially, if a student is in a classroom, the teacher observes an issue going on. Could be anything from math calculations to reading comprehension to, as I said, behavior to focusing. Whatever the presenting issue is, we right away start what's called tier 1 interventions. And that's just the teacher making accommodations within their classroom. And there's so many accommodations you could give a student for just one thing. There are a ton of different accommodations. And that's part of what I will work with, again, the supervisors and administrators and the teaching staff themselves. They know how to accommodate students, and they might need to just pick our brains about, can you give me some ideas about this? Of course, this is all part of the tiered system. We accommodate the student in the classroom. You collect data on that. You're trying accommodations with the student, and then you're going to give those accommodations for a length of time, let's say 6 weeks. You're collecting data on it because you need to know as a teacher, how are my accommodations working? Well, you'll know through assessments, observations, tests, all the little formative assessments you do throughout those 6 weeks, and you're going to collect data on that. And then you're going to review the data as a teacher. Are my accommodations working? Yeah, actually, my student's doing much better. Then great. You just keep giving those accommodations and that's it. But if the student requires more, then that's where we go to tier 2. Tier 2 interventions are anything that would take place outside of the classroom. So my classroom accommodations, still I think they need something more, then that's where we create those outside of the classroom accommodations. So it could be a basic skills class. It could be an after-school academic support club, something along those lines. So it's extra time for that student to get that specialized instruction and assistance that they need. And then as they go further, if they're continuing with those interventions and still require more, that's where we have those discussions as to now what do we do? Now do they need targeted instruction? Do they need direct reading instruction? Do they need specific assistance on on just basic numerical operations? And that's what we're providing them. So it doesn't always mean that they're gonna automatically go for a 504 or an IEP, as I said. There's many ways to accommodate a student within the classroom and with the services we already have in the district. And that's what we're gonna enhance. And we will ensure every step of the way that the parents receive that communication. So as soon as that teacher notices in the beginning that issue that they're noticing in class and they start that tier 1 intervention in the classroom, the parent is notified immediately. And they're kept on board and they're kept abreast of everything going on with their child in the classroom. Again, I'm going to continue the support to staff. I enjoy, hopefully as you've seen through some of my examples, I enjoy being out and connecting with the staff, with the students. I like to get to know everybody. I like to get a feel for what the classroom settings are like. I like to get a feel for what the school is like. I will continue to support staff. We're heading into a new year with a new evaluation model for teachers. So that's going to be something that I will definitely lead the charge on. I have 6 years experience of evaluating teachers. And that's one of the things, well, many things, but it's really one of the things that I just love and I really take such pride in, because the evaluation system, whatever system districts use, there's all different evaluation systems, right? But whatever system they use, they really all encompass the same components. We're looking for the same things within the classroom. We're looking for, how does that teacher demonstrate knowledge of their students? How are they accommodating their daily lesson plans to accommodate their students? How are they connecting with their professional responsibilities? How does that classroom environment feel? Does it feel like there's a great rapport in the classroom? And not just the teacher is nice and friendly, but did they create an environment in which the kids are nice to each other and they respect each other and they remind each other of the rules? Do they know what's coming? Do they follow procedures? Do they just initiate procedures because they know the teacher's structure and style? And do they anticipate things coming? Are they creating engaging lessons and activities where the students are now communicating information, not just receiving information for the teacher? Are they initiating information? Are they asking higher order thinking questions? That's what we look for in the evaluation model. I do also really enjoy going into the classrooms, and it's important to really give teachers that feedback. It's so important to give recommendations or just highlight something that you enjoyed seeing. And that's what I did often. Even in informal walkthroughs, if I see something I like, I would make sure I message that teacher right away. Thank you for letting me come into your classroom today. I loved how you were using the Chromebooks for this. Or I loved your hands-on activity you did in math today. Because they want to receive that feedback and it makes them feel good. And it all ties into that collaboration that I spoke of, the culture and climate that I spoke of, because you're involved and you're giving direct feedback. So I always, just like I said, I always send an email. When I see something I like, I send an email. So my boat picture came back. I showed them that picture at the beginning of the year and I expressed my expectation and my philosophy that we're in this together. We're not on an island, we're in the boat. And on this particular week, this was in the fall, and it was after we had a lot of staff absences because COVID was coming back around again, flu, strep, we were getting hit with absences. And then what I saw was teachers coming in extra earlier, making sure that their fellow colleagues' classroom was set up for the substitute because they knew their colleague was going to be out, making sure that their students were prepared for the day, and they jumped in. And I said, I saw you jump in and you took over for your colleague. I saw it. I saw them we had a full day PD, and they were helping each other write their SGOs, which teachers like cringe when you say SGO. It's goals that teachers have to write every year and show proof that their students are making growth and progressing. They were helping each other work on the SGOs. They were helping students in need, going out of their way to help students. So I saw these things and I just wanted to showcase that and let them all know I see you. I see what you're doing. So I'm here, I'm in the boat with you, rowing along. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope that this gave you insight into me, a little bit of my personality, certainly my experience, and of course my vision for Kinnelon and how I can be of support in this role, and of course to Mr. May. Any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions. No?
Anybody on Zoom?
Nothing? Nope, nothing on that. Thank you. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much.